I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. I was born in South Georgia, but my family moved to Jacksonville, and that was prior to World War II. And my dad was a farm boy, but farm boys back then learned all kinds of trades, plumbing and carpentry and some electrical. and he was a very good carpenter, and he heard that they were hiring carpenters in the shipyards in Jacksonville. And this was just prior to World War II. So he moved down to Jacksonville about 3 months before my mother and I went down on a Greyhound bus and settled in Jacksonville. And I grew up there, elementary, junior high, and high school. And I actually thought that I wanted to be a minister. And I grew up a Baptist. And at that time, Stetson had a pretty strong affiliation with the Baptist. And I thought very seriously about being a minister. And so that was the reason I drifted to Stetson. Plus, I had some friends from high school who were already at Stetson. And I came to Stetson planning to go into the ministry. One summer, I had an opportunity to be a youth minister at a church over in Newport Richey, Florida. I found out real quick that I had misunderstood God's calling. I was very miserable trying to be a minister. I mean, I enjoyed the people, I enjoyed the camaraderie, but it was not for me. And so I came back to Stetson saying, what am I going to do? And that next year when I was a senior, I got a message in my post office box to stop by the admissions office. Well, my first fear was I'd done something wrong and I wasn't going to graduate. But he asked me what I was going to do, and I said, well, I don't really have any definitive plans. I've thought about graduate school. And he said, well, I got a deal for you. If you'll come work for me in the admissions office, helping me recruit students, you can get free tuition to get, continue your education, and your wife would get free tuition. So that sort of sealed the deal, and had no idea that I would stay there. But the second year I was there, I got a promotion to Associate Director of Admissions and a salary increase. Right after I graduated and started working for Stetson, they asked me if I would do the radio play-by-play. So I used to go on the road with the team and call the games. I think one of my most memorable experiences was when we played Duke at Duke. And at that time, Krzyzewski had one of the top 10 teams. And we had a very good team. We had one of Glenn Wilkes' best ever teams. And I didn't think that Krzyzewski knew how good we were. But they wouldn't come play us in DeLand. We had to go to Durham, or wherever it was, to play Duke. I think it was Durham. And I was on the floor there, right by the court, with the radio, play-by-play opportunity. And we started out right neck and neck with them. I mean, we get a point ahead, they get a point ahead, and I think about 6 minutes into the game, I think the score was something like 21-20. And I think Krzyzewski, the Duke coach, thought we were going to be a pushover. All of a sudden, he comes down the floor, right, I'm here and he's there, and the scoring tape, all right, timeout, timeout, timeout. And he turns to one of his assistants and he said, who the heck are these guys? I think one of the most dynamic moments in my life was my sophomore year when a senior student arose in the student government meeting, which was held in Elizabeth Hall, the chapel area there, during the business meeting of the Student Government Association. And the president called for new business. And a student who was a senior student, I think it was T.K. Hedrick was the name, but T.K. stood up and said, yes, I would like to move that the student body endorse the plan to admit African American students in the fall of 1960. Wasn't done anywhere else, in predominantly white institution, even in the state university system. And it was an interesting situation because I think my memory was about 60% of the students seemed to be positive about it, and 40% were not. But it carried. And that was when I was moving toward my graduation and then was hired by Stetson. And the motion was to start admitting African American students in the fall of 1963. And that motion was made, I think it was 57. And I remember distinctly it was T.K. Hedrick who stood up and said he wanted that to happen. And my first job, one of my first jobs when I became an admissions officer right after I graduated, was to try to find a couple of black students for Stetson. And I found two guys. Both of them went on to earn doctoral degrees after Stetson. But that was the beginning of the integration of the university. As an admissions officer, an opportunity to be in a lot of places in the United States I'd never been. Even had an opportunity to go to England for a 2-week period. That was not directly related to Stetson admissions. It was indirectly related. I had gone to an admissions association national meeting. And, you know, most associations have display tables and people who have businesses that are related to what you do. And I was in one of the breaks down there, and I happened to fill out a card at a travel service booth. Not thinking, you know, because I traveled so much, I thought, well, maybe they could send me some nice brochures and give me some hints on hotels and costs and all that. Well, about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call as I was dressing to go to work, about 8:30 in the morning. And the woman on the line said, "You're Gary Meadows with Stetson University." I said, "That's correct." She said, "Do you remember being at the convention, I forgot what month it was, several months ago?" "Yes." "And you filled out a card?" And I said, "Yes." "Well, congratulations, Mr. Meadows. You've won a 2-week all-expense-paid trip to London, England." So I had a lot of fun doing that. One of my favorite stories that I've told so many of my friends and relatives, I had rented a car, you know, because I told my boss, the president of Stetson, that if you give me these 2 weeks, I'll visit some schools in the London area. And I got an itinerary, and I visited about 5 or 6 different schools. And the last school I visited was about 30 miles north of London. And my gas gauge was doing this, you know. And I got lost trying to get back because in London at that time of the year, it got dark at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I got finished with my last school at about 3 o'clock. And I started back, and in the dark then, I lost my way. And I pulled over, and I pulled out my map. And unlike the United States, at that time in England anyway, there aren't street signs everywhere. I could not for the life of me figure out where I was. I looked over at the gas gauge, and it's doing this. So I turned the engine off, and I said, what in the world am I going to do? And so I said, I'm just going to sit right here. Darkness is falling. I'll sleep in the car. I didn't have another school the next day. And when the sunlight comes up, I'll try to find a Bobby or a service station and find my way back to the hotel. Well, I was sort of half asleep in the car, you know, on the side of the road, and all of a sudden there's a rap on my window over here, and I look over and it's a Bobby, British Bobby. So I rolled down the window and I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Old chap, why are you parked here?" And I said, "Because I'm about out of petrol." And I said, "I've lost my way." And so he started laughing. Of course, he realized I was not British right off the bat. He said, "Where are you from, old boy?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Stetson University in DeLand, Florida." "What?" But after we laughed for a while, he showed me a map and told me how to find. He said, "Just go up here about a mile." He didn't say a mile, a kilometer, or whatever he said. But he said, "Stop at such and such a street," and I've forgotten the name of the street. "Park right there. Next bus you see going from your right to your left, follow it." He said, "It'll take you right by your hotel." And sure enough, it did. I recognized the community when I got close to the hotel. And then when I got to the point where I felt I was having a harder and harder time relating to high school students, the opportunity to run the alumni programs came along, and that was, I thought, a natural for me. I was tired of the road running. Admissions people are on the road 6 months out of the year, you know, pretty regularly. And, you know, living out of a suitcase, that gets old after a while. Plus being away from home, you know. And I knew so many of the alumni because not only did I recruit a lot of them to Stetson, but I had met other alumni while I was working at Stetson who would come back for homecoming. So I had a good relationship with a wide range of Stetson alumni. And I think I got more excitement in the admissions job because of going out and meeting people, watching young people come through the process. But Stetson has some fantastic alumni. And to be able to reassociate with some of those people, some of whom I admitted to Stetson, was a real pleasure. I can't think of one moment when I worked at Stetson that I was unhappy. I've never regretted one moment my Stetson experience, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the school. I'm proud of the fact that I stuck with it, and proud that I was able to hopefully help Stetson along the way, because I recruited a lot of students for Stetson, and I enjoyed working with the alumni. Some of those students I admitted to Stetson. And even though I never got rich, I never intended to get rich, but Stetson compensated me, I thought, very adequately, and it's just been a wonderful relationship. I wouldn't change it for anything.